Welcome back to Rock Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan. On today's episode, does every genre eventually become jazz? That and a whole lot of other stuff coming up next.
Yeah, I always thought that Fly the Angels was the weakest tune on that record because back in the day, you had to have the ballad.
I was going to say that the reason it's the weakest is because it was the ballad.
Well, no, there's great ballads, man. There's a lot. Look at
it was like the Baby Yoda of that album.
Look at Is This Love? That's a freaking awesome ballad. You know what I mean? Look at
yeah, it's a little. No, I was thinking like Real Love. Different Slaughter song. It's the one that's got Shannon Doherty from 90210.
Oh, is really? She's on that?
Yeah, she's in the music video.
I had no idea. Yeah, no, I was thinking Fly to the Angels because that to me just strikes me as like, oh, we have to have a ballad.
Yeah,
a ballad. Here's a ballad for you guys. Here's your ballad. You know, there's.
Yeah.
If you look at like Bringing on the Heartbreak from Def Leppard or Is This Love from Whitesnake, you know, Never Say Goodbye by Bon Jovi, it's a great ballad. You know what I mean?
Never Say Goodbye is a lot more saccharine than like Is This Love by Whitesnake. This Love by Whitesnake's got a lot more attitude.
I agree with that, but they're great ballads. You know, there's definitely. I would even say that, like, you know, Every Rose Has Its Thorn from Poison is a great ballad. Heaven by Warrant's a great ballad. I Remember You by Skid Row is a great ballad. You know what I mean?
Skid Row really wrote the greatest. I mean, they topped the genre when they came out.
Well, hell, dude, Headed for Heartbreak by Winger is a great ballad.
Yeah, that's a great one too.
I mean,
absolutely.
There's a lot of great ballads. You know,
In a Darkened Room by Skid Row,
for sure.
That's
I think,
awesome.
Dude, I really like the song "Reason to Live" by Kiss too. That's a great.
Oh,
song.
sure, yeah,
That's kind of ballady.
You know, adjacent. Forever is pretty good too.
You know who wrote that song?
Was it oh goodness, you just caught me flat-footed on Kiss trivia.
Michael
Desmond
Bolton.
Child. Michael Bolton
wrote that song.
Right
Michael
on.
Bolton
I hope he's doing okay. I hear he has a brain tumor.
Oh, I hadn't heard anything
Poor
about
guy.
that. I actually was a fan of Michael Bolton back in the day.
Yeah, he's a great singer.
Yeah.
He did a rock album with Bruce Kulick.
Yeah, he actually did a bunch. On every one of his solo kind of soul albums, he always did like one or two rock songs too.
Yep.
Because he had like Lukather, and he had a couple other guys. I know Tim Pierce played on some of those records.
Nice.
You know, there's a bunch of like great guitar players playing on the. I mean, it's all those session guys in like the early 90s, late 80s were still active. Like Lukather played solos and some of those things. You know, and I always thought Michael Bolton had a great voice, was a really good songwriter, great performer. He kind of got stuck in that sort of I'm going to be the blonde-haired Sam Cooke sort of thing, you know what I mean?
Not even Sam Cooke. He got sucked into the hot AC radio format.
Yeah, him and Kenny G kind of both got like pulled into that sort of.
And for all of you listeners, hot AC means hot adult contemporary.
Yep, exactly. There was a few other guys that kind of were in that range too, but he was kind of like the face of that for a good long while. I always liked the stuff though. I thought the songs were good. A great singer, great playing, great production on those records. You know what I mean? After a while it became kind of repetitive. It's like, you know, I want to love you and bare my soul. That kind of thing.
He was kind of like, he's like the male Celine Dion.
Yeah, in a way.
Right.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Just, you know, now I don't know who the person is that, you know, Celine Dion's their favorite artist and they are in the Celine Dion fan club. And I don't know. I think it's just rich corporate people.
Yeah, it's very like non-obtrusive music. It's like you can put this on at any place, you know, whether it's a bank lobby or dentist office. Or, you know, it's like it's very safe music. He's like, here you go. This is not going to offend anybody. You know?
Dude, this is a perfect. Which was the topic of our last podcast, right? Rock and roll needs to be controversial,
exactly.
Right? It's not family entertainment.
I don't remember being in a dentist office and hearing "Fuck Like a Beast" by Wasp.
Oh, that'd be so great. You know, I've got a student who's a pediatric dentist. I'll see if I can get that.
Like a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Just lay back. The dentist's gonna take care of everything.
Well, can you imagine just like the kid just lies down to have their tooth, and just before the drill goes on, that'd be the baddest ass dental office ever.
It'd be almost creepier if it was a Michael Bolton. When I'm in. Wait, what's happening? Why can't? I'm asleep. Now I'm asleep. God knows what's gonna happen.
Oh, that could be the anesthesia, right? We're gonna put you under like natural, homeopathically. So we're gonna play some Michael Bolton. Can't start counting backwards from 10. Kid would be out by the first chorus. That's a great idea.
Anyway,
I'll pitch all these
Forever
ideas.
by Kiss, written by Michael Bolton. And actually, Michael Bolton co-wrote a bunch of tunes on that album. On what was that? Hot in the Shade. There's a couple of Michael Bolton co-writes on that. Yeah,
I always thought that Sphinx looked suspiciously suspiciously like Michael Bolton on the album cover with
There's
the
some
Ray
great
Bans.
stuff. There's some great stuff on that album. Actually, I'm a fan of Michael Bolton. So I'm not trashing the dude, but
Yeah, well, I'm a fan of 80s Kiss because they had outside songwriters that weren't like the Gene songs.
Desmond Child did some
terrible.
songs with them for sure.
Yep,
too. And
absolutely.
yeah, man, and you can tell because it's just the quality of songwriting took another step up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's basically Paul Stanley's solo band at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
You
And
know,
both the better guitar player with Bruce Kulick on guitar.
Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? And that's my Kiss. When I think of Kiss, I think of the Kiss that I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of the Bruce Kulick, 80s Kiss. That's that's the Kiss that I'm a fan of. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that you and I didn't grow up on old Kiss. We weren't like 13 in 1975, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, no, we were not even born at that point. You know what I mean? So it's like one of those things where it's kind of like we didn't have this attachment to like the Ace Frehley, spitting blood on stage. Not there's anything wrong with that. but-
Gene was spitting blood.
I'm not gonna
Ace
say- I'm
was
saying
Ace
that
was shooting
era of
smoke
Kiss.
out of his guitar.
That era of Kiss,
Which I
with
do
a
love.
Rolex watch on as he's playing too.
Yeah, well,
Oh, that
you know, from
spaceman
outer-
has a Rolex. That's
Hey,
pretty
it was
good.
shiny. There were probably diamonds in it and stuff.
I know.
Space dust.
I don't mean that. I know that Kiss is the one, or that Gene's the one that spit the blood. But that era, that kind of like we're monsters from space, blah blah blah. And all the 13-year-olds like, oh my god, we got to go see this rock band.
I mean,
that's
I
made up
do
of
love
monsters
that
from
era of
space.
Kiss.
I am actually not a huge fan of that era of Kiss. I gotta be honest with you. I don't think the songwriting was nearly as
It's
good.
not. But
It's like when like Vinnie Vincent and Mark St. John and Bruce Kulick were the man that really took a step up in terms of the songwriting.
well, it had to.
Yeah, I
you
guess
know?
so.
I mean, it had to. Absolutely.
I think
But,
because I don't have that nostalgic attachment to it, that doesn't make me like I don't look at it with such fondness. Like if I was someone who grew up on that, I would look at it with a lot of fondness, regardless of the fact that the songwriting wasn't quite at the same par as like
Yeah,
it came later.
I distinctly remember being like, remember how at the mall they would have
Malls are places that people used to go to
Right.
purchase goods, just so people know. That.
Yes, they were. Yeah, there were a lot.
It's like
of,
Amazon if it was a physical place.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So we were at one of those places. It was called Sunrise Mall.
Oh my God.
I know.
That's
And-
only now available in archaeological evidence.
well, I think archaeologists just discovered it. Yeah.
This is a once great civilization we've found here. Yeah.
And it was they were having it was one of those baseball like trading card shows. I guess that day we were there, and I found a pack of Kiss trading cards and asked my dad if I could, have them.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, no, you don't want to get into that stuff or something like that. And so at that moment,
You're like, yes, I do. Yes, I really, really do.
now I really do, right? And I think the top card was Gene, with blood all over his face or something. And I just, I must have been 6. I just thought it was the coolest thing I ever
That's
saw.
so funny. You were always kind of rebellious that way, like that kind of that church.
Oh, yeah.
You were always like zigging in the other way. That's so funny to me.
Oh, dude, I survived 9 years of Catholic school.
I get
man.
you,
Dude.
it helped form you, man.
It did in like a Lord of the Flies kind of way. I made it off the island.
Did you
man.
kill Piggy? You killed Piggy.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, dude.
I
Yeah,
get you.
that's how you survived in Catholic school. You had to take a severed pig's head and like plant it. Getting in fights like every single day.
Wow, that must
Yeah.
have toughened you up a little bit. That's for sure.
I guess so. I don't know. I mean, I'm no tough guy, but
I get
yeah.
you. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But yeah, so that's I mean, so obviously King Diamond would be important.
That's
to
the
a
next
person. That's
yeah. Oh, wait,
yes.
Kiss is too extreme, huh? Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Got it, exactly. Right. So, there's something you said earlier. A couple of things about.
I say so many wonderful and insightful things, though.
You truly do.
really could just point to anything I say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like that time you were like, Ryan, your solo's rad. Yeah, that was deep and meaningful.
Man, that was really insightful of you. Notice
yeah,
that.
thank
That's
you very
incredible.
much.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
So
That might be the smartest and most correct thing you've ever said.
so to piggyback on you're talking about just the innocuousness of Michael Bolton and
Who I like and I'm a fan.
I'm going to try and weave last week's topic into today's topic, all with this one thing. So
Okay. This is the linchpin. Here it comes.
this is the George Lynchpin.
Yeah,
Watch
exactly.
me go, right?
Yep.
So
Watch it lose all its power towards the end of its thought point.
so last week, was all about rock and roll shouldn't be family entertainment.
Yeah. Actually, who knows what we talked about last week? Because this is an evergreen podcast. So who's to say?
Yes.
At some point
On
in the
another
past.
one of our podcasts,
Yes.
this was a topic.
I mean, at some point in time that we're recording this, which could be summer or winter, we don't know.
Yes, somewhere in time when Eddie from Iron Maiden is a cyborg.
Exactly.
Yes, just like the album cover.
This podcast exists in a void outside of space and time.
Okay, so now I'm going to go on like a separate tangent. So I had a student this past week No one knows what week it was. But so
sometime between January and December.
Yeah, so we're just chit-chatting about what's going, talking about school and all that. And he's like, yeah, I've got a project for history. I've got to make a poster. And I said, oh, dude, well then Iron Maiden's got you covered, man. All their songs are about history.
Exactly.
Let me show you a few.
Here's the one from The Trooper. There you go.
Yeah, here's the one from The Trooper.
Yeah.
Here's the cover of Power Slave.
Yeah, exactly. Somewhere in
I was
time,
like, dude,
yeah.
what part of history are you studying? Iron Maiden has something for you.
It's true. Yeah. In the future. And obviously,
right.
Seventh Son,
You got it, right? Yeah. So I felt like I did the world a service just letting that young man know.
Yeah, that's true.
That, his key to passing history class is Iron Maiden.
I can't help but feel I got you off track with the point you were making. You were winding up like you were a pitcher ready to deliver the ball.
So here we
go. Completely just called you off. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I got it. Yep. So, so we've discussed how rock music should not be family entertainment.
Yes, that's been a whole podcast.
Yes, and you also mentioned to me something about Paradise City by Guns N' Roses and streaming numbers. What was that all about?
It's like when it passed 1 billion streams on Spotify.
Yeah, so I'm glad it's a song that's not Sweet Child of Mine,
which, by the way, I still think is a great song. I mean, there's a reason people love that song.
I've heard enough of it.
Sure, I get you. It's like Stairway to Heaven. It's one of those songs that you gotta just that's enough.
I don't hate it. That's enough.
Yeah.
Oh man, and there's another topic too. We'll have to put a pin.
No, we talked about it. We have a podcast on that.
Yeah, no,
songs
I know.
We don't have to ever hear again. Yeah.
Well, okay, so. Okay, one more public service announcement for everybody listening.
Okay.
All right. So there's a disturbing trend. So I'm a Sacramento Kings fan.
Yeah. So am I. Yep. Proud Sacramento Kings fan. We actually made the playoffs last year.
Yes, that's right.
Or was it a couple years ago?
Or who knows? Well, it was. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's going to date. It wasn't a couple. It's the Sacramento Kings, right?
That's only been like twice.
Yeah, so there aren't that many years to choose from. So that really kind of pins things.
We're in the middle of the next run. That's what's happening right now.
Right. Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast in 2062,
yes,
hopefully then
there's a short period of time in like 2002 where the Kings were relevant, and there's another time in the early 2020s where the Kings were relevant.
Yes, you're right. That's right.
Yeah. Every 20 years, like Haley's Comet.
So, there's moments in history when mankind is standing on the brink and we have an opportunity to just say no, right?
Sure.
All right. So everybody knows in soccer, and I actually tried to look this up. I hope somebody listening will tell me what the name of this song is. But in soccer, there's the whoa, 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 whoa. They do that thing. Yeah. Right? I don't know what song that is.
Sure. I don't either. It's I always figured some foreign thing. It's like some like European or South American thing. I don't know what that is.
Yep.
I'm a dumb American.
Yeah. So
what? We ain't got no Toby Keith. What got that song they singing? I reckon.
Which brings us back to corn trucks. So
I had a whole bowl of corn trucks.
It sounds like it. Yeah. So so now I've noticed that number one, they've been playing Seven Nation Army at Kings games on the PA, but it's getting worse.
Could it get worse?
The crowd is starting to chant it.
Yeah, that's awful.
And now I've heard a radio personality on Sports Talk Radio suggest our Sacramento Kings center Domantas Sabonis. You can actually line up the syllables of his name with Seven Nation Army. So I'm just here to say, humanity, no.
Yes, stop.
Don't
make that choice.
Stop. Yeah. Don't do it. Stop.
It's not good for Sabonis. It's not good for the Kings. It's not good for any of us.
Yeah, just enough.
Yes, we need to walk away from
Seven Nation Army.
Yep.
Put it down.
Yep.
Right, as the canary in the.
How about we replace it with Tornado of Souls by Megadeth?
That'd be fun.
That'd be great. I mean, that'd be awesome, dude.
Yeah, if you could throw in the whole crowd, hey, and then like the whole crowd, like
that'd be awesome.
Dude, that'd be awesome if the whole crowd were doing the wave all around the arena while doing Tornado of Souls. That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. That to me is a good. Maybe Hangar 18. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think Tornado of Souls would be a little bit better. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. If you could get like left side arena and right side arena.
Do you think we're asking too much people to have them understand?
Well, because they're about to latch on to Seven Nation Army, and I just
anything else.
So as somebody who so I feel like we're the canary in the coal mine. Okay, working in music education, especially working in in a teaching studio or a music store.
Yeah,
where I hear it from I hear the saxophone guy teaching Seven Nation Army.
That's unfortunate.
I hear the bass teachers teaching Seven Nation Army. Enough.
It'll naturally burn itself out. It's almost like
it might not.
It will.
I mean, they've been singing the soccer thing forever.
I know, it's really stupid too.
Americans are trying to make Seven Nation Army the soccer thing.
Don't give Jack White that, man. Don't give that to him. You know what I mean?
Just enough.
Yeah, exactly.
No more.
It occurs to me we've gotten pretty far into the podcast without actually ever getting to what our topic is today.
Okay, so I'm happy to announce that Comedy Central is finally running one of the greatest movies of all time. Again,
Air Bud 2. Is that the one?
Step Brothers.
I love Step Brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's that scene when what's his name? Adam Scott and his family are in the Land Rover
singing "Sweet Child of Mine,"
and they're singing "Sweet Child of Mine" a cappella.
Yeah,
right. It's hilarious and cringy, right?
Isn't Catherine Hahn's his wife, right?
Yeah, I think so. And then like two stupid human children are in the car.
Yep.
And it occurred to me, I wonder how many people really get why that's funny.
Probably nobody. And they're halfway through before people even realize what it is. Like, oh wait, isn't that Guns N' Roses song? That's like probably what's going to happen. You know what I mean? And
yeah, I mean, do people understand that that's funny? Not because there's a bunch of people doing a goofy a cappella thing to Sweet Child of Mine, but I mean, the joke is that they're super square, clean cut, like socially incapable rich people singing a Guns N' Roses song off of Appetite for Destruction.
Yep.
In the Land Rover.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. That's true.
Which leads us, which sort of leads into this week's podcast topic. Does every genre eventually become jazz?
Yeah, and when we say jazz, just to be clear about it, we're not putting any kind of disrespect on the name of jazz. What we mean by jazz is a niche genre that's got a dedicated small fan base, not for the mainstream, not for everybody. It's definitely a pocket universe of a certain genre. And you could argue that blues hasn't been in that forever. It's kind of got a dedicated fan base that really loves it, that follows it. It's going to never go away. Blues is always going to have a following. There's always a niche of people who are going to love blues. And then what we're seeing now is rock becoming that. Like rock and metal is becoming a niche genre, much like jazz or blues, or like soul, R&B, that kind of thing. Same, not like R&B like Usher, or, Beyonce. That's not R&B.
You mean like Marvin Gaye?
Like Marvin Gaye, that kind of stuff. Like Al Green. Kind of, that. There's like a subgenre, Americana, like the music, like Americana roots music. That's kind of got its own little subgenre.
Well, was Americana ever mainstream though?
No, but that's what I mean. But rock was only mainstream before. But if you talk to someone under 30, they never know rock as being mainstream. Other than the few like the Guns N' Roses, Van Halen, AC/DC, Metallica, the Def Leppard, the mega bands that everybody's heard, Beatles, Stones, that kind of thing, Zeppelin.
I'd like to give a shout out again to the country of Japan.
Another one.
Because rock is still mainstream there.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, there isn't really a mainstream anymore. The closest thing we have to mainstream is like pop and rap. Dude, there's Snoop Dogg is the ambassador for the NBC Olympic Games this year. You know what I mean? This is what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't get more mainstream than that.
Dude, is the Olympic torch about to become a spliff?
You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's pretty mainstream, dude. Like, he's like,
what if all the athletes just like get the munchies and they can't compete?
This is what I'm trying to say, though. Like, there is no more mainstream than that. Like, one time Snoop Dogg was considered like the most dangerous rapper ever. And now he's like this like TV dad kind of like, he's almost like what Ozzy Osbourne went through this process too. Ozzy Osbourne was like the heavy metal madman, the Prince of Darkness, and now he's like, oh shit, I'm trying to find the peanut butter. Oh, he's so funny and hilarious.
Such are the
and that's happening to Snoop Dogg before our very eyes. He's like,
are the vile fruits of late stage capitalism.
It's the truth, and so that's not dangerous anymore. Like rap is fully mainstream now. Dude, Snoop Dogg and Ice Cube and all these dudes are like totally mainstream. Like actors, TV dads.
Dude, okay. The other day I'm watching TV and Ice-T is trying to sell me like
Car Shield.
Car Shield. Yeah, Car Shield
Vivica
insurance.
A. Fox are selling us Car Shield.
Yeah, and Vivica A. Fox is they're selling me
I know.
Car Shield.
Exactly. This is Ice-T for Car
warranty.
Shield. You know, can
Right.
you imagine back in like the early 90s, like Ice-T when he's singing "Fuck the Police" and shit.
Dude, well, actually, that was NWA.
Oh, that's I'm sorry. What was it?
Ice-T was New Jack Hustler.
Cop Killer.
And well, that was with Body Count.
Body Count, yeah.
Like Ice-T was like New Jack Hustler. I'm 18. I got a $50,000 car. Sorry, I just rapped on the podcast.
That's unfortunate. We'll never have that.
But you know, he was 18, had a $50,000 car, and now he still has that car running because of Car Shield.
Yeah, exactly. They covered all the insurance. You didn't have to pay
They covered
anything.
all the repairs.
Nothing out of pocket.
Right. I don't know what the mileage
all you have to
is
do
on
is
it,
pay
but-
the exactly. But no, can you imagine if you talked to you and I back in the day and say, hey, like in 30 years, Ice-T is going to be like a spokesman for Car Shield. You know, like, what? Like what? He's going to be like doing commercials for like Grubhub and stuff. You know, Snoop Dogg's going to do Grubhub commercials, and you know, it's like we've been like, what is going on? Like, what's going to happen?
Wasn't Snoop Dogg part of the campaign for Jack in the Box's like Munchie Box or something like that? Yeah.
The point I'm trying to make though is that's fully been embraced in the mainstream. Now that what was considered kind of dangerous rap music, which is by the way not good for rap. I think rap needs to still be. I mean, I think WAP by what's her face Cardi B is actually is it Megan Thee Stallion or I don't know what it is, but
one of Megan Thee Stallion or Cardi B or
that stuff is
Lil
probably
Kim
the most like edgy shit I've seen in the rap world in a while. You know what I mean?
Because it was sexually provocative.
Yeah, exactly. But
good for her. Then.
And that's definitely pushing buttons to the conservative people for sure. It's going to make people upset just because it's there, which is
I respect that.
But that's something I respect too, and I think that's something that it's like, okay, well, that's something that's not, you know, Snoop Dogg isn't doing that anymore. You know,
Definitely not.
You know that's come and gone, and then all the other like younger rappers are kind of all about trying to become the next Snoop Dogg or the next.
So you're saying that Snoop Dogg is kind of the Michael Bolton of rap?
I don't know, maybe.
No, he's not that innocuous.
The point I'm trying to make is that at some point rap is going to get supplanted by something else because it's not dangerous anymore either. You know what I mean? It's not transgressive. You know, your middle school teacher probably listened to Ice-T or Ice Cube or something or whatever. If you pick some other rapper, Drake, you know, whoever the newer people is. Whenever I see I watch like some Sports Center thing or I watch like FS1 or something. I'm like waiting to see something about like a playoff game or something, and they'll have somebody like this is something. I'm like I have no idea who this person is. It's like it must be some rapper. I don't know who that is. But every year it's like someone I've never heard of. I feel like they're just making it up. Like hire some actor. They confuse, you know, it's middle-aged white dudes. Like I don't know. This must be like a rapper or something. You know what I mean?
Sounds like what they do in China, where they hire like a 6 foot tall white guy to like pose as a doctor to open a hospital.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
Sure.
That's actually a thing. I think
But then we would never know. Like
we
I don't know who this person is. You know, it's like I assume that's some rapper guy. I don't know. You know, it's like, but I just feel like that's not good for rap, and I think eventually rap will become jazz. It's going to happen. You know what I mean? Rock has already become that. Like rock stopped being dangerous when we were kids. You know what I mean? Like it really kind of, you know, when we were like so again, using the Adam Scott and Family singing "Sweet Child of Mine" a cappella, right? So what is the trajectory? What is the arc? Like I wonder what the stages of. Well, I think
as it transforms, you know, like the werewolf, you don't just start off as a dude and then flick, you're a werewolf.
I mean,
there's an awesome.
Depends on what the in-world universe is demanding from you.
Hopefully, there's an awesome. So let's all think American Werewolf in London.
Which is a movie from the early 80s.
Yes, we're best werewolf
movie.
Transformation scene ever.
Yeah, a little too long, actually, if you ask me.
It could be longer and grosser. That'd be awesome.
Man. Like, I don't know if we see this. You know, it's like,
dude, Scott.
Then also there's that scene where like his buddy's like half decayed in the movie.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's like pretty
that's
gross.
Rad.
Like,
exactly. That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Dude, Scott, those are like some of the best parts of the movie.
I was just to let you know, I was forced to watch that movie against my will when I was a kid, and I remember thinking like, I don't need to be seeing this. You know, it's like,
I mean, well, dude, when you're a kid, that's the perfect time to see it. Well, no,
here's the thing. I was like probably 6, and I remember
perfect.
Like, I have an older brother and an older sister, and they're much older. Like my brother's 5 years older than me, and my sister's like 7 years old. So she's like 13. My brother's like 10, 11, and I was like 6. And like, we're gonna watch a movie tonight. I'm like, all right, whatever. This is back in the day, by the way, when I didn't have a tablet or a phone. I couldn't, go. There was like one TV in the house, so you had to watch whatever they wanted to watch. And I remember being conscripted into watching this werewolf movie, and thinking, like, this is not what I signed signed up for. Can we put Star Wars on again, please?
Dude, okay,
that's kind of that's where I was at.
So here's where you and I differ, because you just described some of my happiest childhood memories.
Being forced to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, talk about like it felt dangerous, and then you watched it and you got scared and you had nightmares and shit. And
I wasn't down for
dude,
that.
that was
I
the
didn't want
best.
nightmares.
Oh, I was
wanna...
totally down for that.
But I also lived out in the country too, so it's like one of those things where it's kind of like,
Ew.
okay, it's like, yeah, like I don't know what's going on in the dark
Dude,
wilderness
that's
out there. You know,
okay.
like,
That is okay. I just want you to know that I wish I could recapture that feeling as an adult.
I got an idea. Have your car break down like in some place like North Natomas.
Dude, I mean, these days,
Rio Linda, I guess,
these days I just think about like actual mortality. But, I mean, dude, that sense of wonder of being out in the country and like thinking, oh, what if werewolves are real?
Yeah,
what was that?
That's
like,
something
that's
you should age out of at like age 7. You should like realize that isn't true. But
yeah, so I'm so happy
what is
you
real?
got to have that experience with where
mountain
American
lions,
Werewolf in
which will
London.
get you just as dead.
True.
So it's like, and that was a real thing. And there's also we had coyotes in our property all the time. So
dude, we've got coyotes that like a week ago or two, one just ran right down the street. That's not the first time either.
was he chasing a roadrunner? I'm just kind of curious.
Perhaps
90% of all coyote sightings are he's on a rocket that says Acme on the side.
yes. Well, we do.
Failed
we do
attempt
have
to catch the
turkeys
roadrunner.
in the neighborhood, so
No, long story short, I wasn't down for that. That's all I'm trying to say. I was much more of a.
Maybe I can convince you to.
I was a
view that
gentle
memory
soul. I was
from
a gentle soul back those days.
Maybe you can look back on that more kindly now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know what though? That being said, I was totally happy to watch like Commando and Rambo movies. So, but I guess that was
Commando was rad.
yeah, that kind of thing.
I never
Terminator.
really got into Rambo so much, but Commando, that was my jam.
Dude, I remember seeing Rambo 2 at the drive-in theater when I was a little kid. And I remember because they stuck me in the trunk of the car. So they had to pay for me. It was pretty, I'll never forget that.
Oh, well, that's fun too,
that was
because
pretty-
you're gaming the See, we used to do fun stuff
Yeah.
like that when we were kids.
Watch Rambo kill a bunch of dudes. It's like
Sneaking into the drive-through.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So kids out there, this is what you're missing.
yeah,
when
back in the
you're
80s when
on
you
your
were
phone.
yeah, exactly. Back in the 80s when you were a kid, that's what you did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you broke laws.
Yeah, it's
you
true.
know, you watched R-rated movies before you were old enough.
Dude,
It
that
was
happened
great.
all the time. I mean, I'm watching Jaws. I wouldn't take a bath for like a week after watching Jaws. Like,
Oh,
somehow
that's so great.
Somehow the shark's gonna get in here.
Oh, dude, I remember going to the public swimming pool and doing like the cannonball contest in the deep pool. And then as soon as I get under the water, I'd look around to see if there was a shark down there. Oh, and then I'd swim out as fast as I could.
He's like, oh god, he's gonna
Yeah.
get me. It's like,
dude, so much fun.
yeah, it's so funny.
So
Isn't
much
it amazing?
fun.
Like when you're a kid, how your mind works. Like I'm
Oh,
in
it's
a
the
public
best.
swimming pool. There's literally impossible for a shark to get in here, and yet I am literally thinking about that the whole time. You know what my brother did to me one time? We were at the lake. We were swimming in a lake. And he's like, oh, fuck, let's get out of here. He starts swimming. He's like, dude, you got to get out of here right now. And I was like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm swimming as hard as I can. And he's like, you idiot.
Oh, man, that's great, dude. That sounds like something that my cousin Mark would have done to me.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that's great. And, I'm grateful for it because, it
I
was
looked at it, I
fun.
was like, but that's the dude. Like this, we're like in Folsom Lake. There's like no way a shark couldn't live in this lake. But
Dude, I still got to get my 10-year-old nephew over for The Exorcist.
thanks for listening to the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Brian and Scott. Please make sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast. Now back to the show. Show them The Exorcist Believer first, so they see that's the peak of the whole genre. And then,
Dude, I would never do that. Movie's dead to me, man. That movie doesn't even exist.
I'm sorry, man. I'm just poking the bear.
Dude, you can't banish a demon with the power of friendship. That's so Disney and Star Wars.
Well, here's the thing I want to say though about the topic of today's subject.
So what is the arc of going from mainstream? What are the stages?
Going from dangerous kind of music.
Yeah, dangerous kind of music.
I think you're exactly it. The first thing is it starts becoming very, very popular. Like a lot of people get on board. Like the dentist starts listening to whatever it is, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Does there have to be like a downtime where it totally falls out of favor?
No, not at all. I think the most dangerous thing that can happen to a genre is it becomes massively popular. Then it becomes completely integrated into the mainstream. It starts losing all of its danger at all. It's become ubiquitous. I think that is
the audience gets older.
Yeah, as the audience gets older. And then what will happen is the next audience is going to see that that's what the people older than listen to. And they're just like, well, that's not my music. I'm listening to something. I'm over here. I'm different from you because I listen to this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, or in the way it is now, like I'm different from you because I don't care about music at all. I'm going to sit here and scroll TikTok and Instagram. That's what the new generation is doing to differentiate themselves. They don't even give two craps about music. You know what I mean?
It's all video games and
It's
TikToks.
zero to their identity. They have zero caring. It's just whatever's on in the background. It's like a white noise machine. You know what I mean? So I think we might be in some uncharted territory on that front. But I think that's it. And then once it becomes massively popular, it's just a matter of diminishing returns going forward, and then becoming less and less dangerous with newer artists being just like, pale imitations of the previous artists, and then it just gets more and more watered down to the point where eventually it's going to be just a nostalgia thing for people of a certain age. And then that's the step into the niche genre. That's when you start getting into like the jazz, blues, like metal, 80s metal, like thrash, that kind of stuff. I don't know that like extreme metal's ever been accepted enough because it's just too abrasive. I don't think there's ever going to be a big enough audience for that.
Oh yeah, right. Like death metal's always been.
Yeah, it's like a friend who, when instead of like hugging you, like screams "fuck you" and punches you in the face. And that's not for everybody. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like, man, maybe I can find like a culinary. Dude, I'll happily shoot a raw quail egg or eat escargot, but I realize that not everybody. I mean, that's not for everybody.
It's like the Doritos Locos Taco of the.
It's like only world. For the French and the Japanese, respectively.
Yep, exactly. Blowfish. Like the raw blowfish.
Oh yeah, like sea urchin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can appreciate
or
the flavor
sea anemone.
Of sea
like that's another thing. Can you imagine like, oh, I'm gonna eat this sea slug. That sounds great.
I don't know if I've ever had sea anemone.
Oh, it's so.
Right?
It's the fact that people.
Have you had it?
I'm a vegetarian. So that's one of those things that so I don't eat meat.
even slugs.
Yeah, even slugs, especially slugs. I think that might be the main reason I started becoming a vegetarian. Like, no, if people are eating slugs, I'm out. That's basically it.
Hey, it's usually, well, at least in the case of escargot, it's just an excuse to put butter in your body. It's butter and garlic, and
I'm not a vegan.
And a vehicle.
So I'm definitely on board with butter and cheese for sure. That's the reason that I'm not a vegan. Is I could never get rid of buttermilk cheese. Dude, I love ice cream. I love butter. I love cheese.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to go away. I always say I don't want an animal to be killed for me to have food, but I don't mind them being inconvenienced. That's fine. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you pointed all that out. That's an important distinction.
Yeah, that might be maybe you're molested. I don't know. The guy didn't buy you a drink before he went and milked you, whatever it is. But
Man,
I've never seen a cow with a "no means no" sign on. It's like
right. Well, it would be moo means moo. All right. Well, that tops the podcast.
No, I definitely think that the challenge is that I think music in general is fighting for its life right now, and not just our genre,
just all music, all genres,
just for relevance and importance, because it's become so. Like I've described it on this podcast before, it's like tap water. Like no one even contemplates it. It's like that's just always just right there, as much as I want. Don't even think about it. I do this little thing that comes out.
I'm definitely heartened by the popularity of anime.
I suppose, but I mean,
anime's gonna help, dude. One of the core things people dig about anime is all the music.
Yeah, my daughter's a perfect example of that. My daughter's way into anime music. That's her favorite kind of music.
Yeah, what did you say? Was it Vocaloid?
Vocaloid, yeah, the Hatsune Miku kind of thing and stuff.
You know what? I finally had a student bring up Vocaloid a week or two ago.
Yep.
And you know what? We fired up the Vocaloid tune. I found what the melody was. I showed her how to play it on her guitar, and hopefully she's inspired.
There's some great guitar stuff in a lot of that music too. I mean,
damn straight.
That's a big part of the Japanese culture. They really revere great music and great playing.
Yeah, they definitely revere not sucking at stuff.
As much as they revere Godzilla, they revere guitar playing.
Dude, yeah, I gotta see the latest Godzilla movie still.
-1.
Yeah,
it looks. I've heard great things. As soon as that's available on streaming, I'm all over that.
Well, and you know what I hear is great about it? I hear there's characters.
Oh, yeah.
And I hear there's some character development, which is
especially
really
with Godzilla. There's this whole scene where he's talking to Mothra over a cup of tea about like, what does this all mean?
Well, I hear Mothra is his therapist.
Yeah, exactly. And what did it make you feel like, Godzilla, when you stomped on that town and no one even screamed? He's like, I just feel like, why am I even here?
He's like,
what am I doing this for? I'm supposed to be a giant monster emerging from the ocean to show people their place in nature, and like they don't even care.
It's like, dude, I don't.
And Mothra's like, that must really be hard to understand that.
I really feel like beating up on King Ghidorah is just like, it's just a niche thing now.
Yeah,
it's not like mainstream anymore.
It's like when I was in my 20s, I did that.
Right.
I don't see that's who I am now. You know what I mean? But what am I? I mean, people aren't afraid of me anymore. They think I'm like a nice guy, and beating up Ghidorah is not my thing either. answer. So
Dude, there's this French band that stole my name,
Exactly.
and they're French. Like,
Exactly.
what the hell? How
but
can
they
they call themselves Gojira?
they are one of the better bands, though, I got to say. I really appreciate their music.
But why does a French band get to call themselves Gojira? I don't
it's true.
understand.
You would think there
but-
should be some kind of like high table duel to decide between the Japanese clan and the. You don't get to decide that. You know.
Oh
I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
So, Mr. Godzilla, tell me about your childhood. Well,
Exactly.
I hatched about 70 years ago, miles under the sea.
Exactly. I remember the first time I stomped the island outside of Taiwan, and it was wonderful.
Yes, I remember those nuclear tests at Bikini Atoll. Yeah.
Oh man, or Bikini
Yeah.
Bottom, maybe him and SpongeBob are bros.
Yes.
No, I'm just thinking. Back in the day, though, the music was like, I think we talked about this before, like it was co-equal with movies and television and video games. So it was like the four things you had. And then obviously going outside and doing things. Those are things you did. You know, I think now music is very much, you know, it's just whatever's on in the background. You know what I mean?
So it seems like so I don't know if this really. So I don't know if this happened with jazz, but definitely in the 20s, the 30s, even the 40s. You know, jazz was the bee's knees, as they would have said back then.
Yep.
Right? Like that was the
Gee,
thing.
it was really swell.
Yeah, it was really swell.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I don't think jazz ever got the same kind of backlash. Because, I mean, rock and roll kind of supplanted jazz, right?
Mainly because it was the music of the youth and rebellion. You know what I mean? And I think that jazz was then seen as like kind of the music of the establishment, sort of, if that makes
Yep.
sense. And I think rock and roll has become that. Rock and roll has become the music of the establishment.
Dude, I hate that
Yeah.
so much.
And then, well, rap's becoming that now too, as we speak. We're literally
Right.
watching rap become the music of the establishment.
Yeah, that
so
is
that
true.
can only mean that that's shelf life is already there. And so, here's the thing to keep in mind: the heart in people, because people are probably all like, "Wow, I may as well just throw myself off a building now because there's nothing to live for." And maybe in your case, that's true. But listener, I don't know. I can't speak to your experience.
Anyone who's listening to our podcast deserves to live because
That's
they've
true.
got great taste.
You know what's important too, is
And
there's
we love
another-
them.
There's another podcast coming next week that you should subscribe to. So you need to live, if not for no other reason than for that.
Yes,
But
man.
not in my own self-interest at all. Just really in the,
No.
in the case of
Not whatsoever.
altruistically looking after my fellow man.
Yes.
But no, I think that jazz became like the music of the establishment. Rock's become that. Rap's become that. So what's going to happen is that none of these genres are ever going to go away. There's always going to be a dedicated fan base that's going to be there for them. That's going to happen, and there'll be new generations of artists in that genre that come up, and it's going to be embraced by that, you know, them or the next generation of the people that are fans of that. But I don't think we're going to ever see like a situation where it's like mainstream, like a Taylor Swift level fame. You know,
Do you
like
think
where-
Taylor Swift is the last gasp?
Maybe. I mean, it's possible because she's been around for a long time, even though she's like 30. She's been around for like freaking 15 years.
I was
So-
going to say 15 years.
yeah, so it's one of those things where like she came in when there was like, you know, terrestrial radio still existed.
Right.
You know, MTV and videos were still a thing. There was no YouTube, I don't think, when she or maybe
there was
maybe
YouTube,
there was
but-
just, but there wasn't really a place where you got music at that point. It's where you watch cat videos back then. But I think that it's possible. I mean, I don't know. There's a bunch of newer artists that keep coming up, but I feel like all the ones that keep coming up end up becoming actors, like Dua Lipa's of the world, and you know that they like.
Is Dua Lipa an actress now?
Well, she's now starring in movies and TV shows and stuff, and you know,
I'm so glad I haven't seen any of those
Well,
movies or TV shows.
one of them is starring Henry Cavill, man, our boy Henry Cavill.
Wait, what is
It's
it?
called Argyle. It's a new one. It's coming out soon. Yeah, it's coming out next couple weeks or something. It's like
what's
a
it
spy
about?
movie. It's like a spy
Oh,
movie.
yeah, I'll pass.
I love spy movies personally, but
It's okay.
yeah. Maybe if is there an exorcism in there? Would you be interested?
Right?
Maybe
Yeah,
sort of work
dude,
that in
totally.
there?
If they're if
Yeah.
it were
They're spying on Satan and no,
yeah, or like
something.
Satan is like spying on the
But
Vatican.
a lot of
like,
these
yeah.
pop princess types are really like, look at Selena Gomez. She's starting like thing with freaking Martin Short and Steve Martin. You know what I mean? It's like so they kind of go, yeah. The Only Murders in the Building. You haven't heard of this?
No,
It's
no.
I think it's on Hulu. I want to say it's a TV show, but that's what I'm saying. Like these pop stars that keep coming out, they end up basically getting conscripted into being television and movie stars. Because shockingly, they're all beautiful women for the most part. You know what I mean? And it's like it's not that they're like real artists. It's not like back in the day. Look at like Alicia Keys is an example of a real artist. That's real.
yeah,
who's a
gosh, she's
musician.
awesome. Her
And
music is great. What a talent.
But there's not a lot of those. There's a lot of like more of the sort of just take this unbelievably beautiful woman who can sing, and we'll get songwriters around them, and we'll build them up.
Yeah,
kind of the
bust out
J-Lo,
the
sort of the J-Lo kind of.
We'll
model.
melodyne them to success.
Yeah, and then we'll go through, and then they'll become actors. You know what I mean? That's kind of becoming what it's become. It's not about the music really much anymore. So I think that kind of thing is going to always come and go, but that's going to be very cyclical. It's like you'll be huge till you're like 35, and then you got to age out.
Right, well,
It's like NFL or something.
Well, you know what, dude? Even in our chosen genre, I mean, it's open to people of all ages, but being in one's 40s and 50s playing the kind of music we play,
Yeah.
especially in the metal world, it's sometimes I wonder, like, man, am I like the old guard?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's true. Most of the people who play this music are older people in their 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s now. That there's a handful of bands in their 20s and 30s. Probably,
I guess maybe more when I think about like the YouTube shred people.
Yeah, but
right?
that's not really playing in a band. That's look at my cool thing I worked out in my bedroom. You know what I mean? That's
True.
not playing in a band. You're not going out and playing clubs and putting records out, stuff like that. You know what I mean? That's a totally different world. That is very much a flash in the pan. It's very similar to the pop princess thing. It's like you're going to have followers on YouTube.
Although more talented if they're actually playing. There's some really great guitar players.
No, there's a lot of great
thing,
guitar players, but that doesn't mean you can actually write a song or perform either.
Yeah,
that's a totally different animal. You know what I mean? And that's not taking anything away from those guys. They're great at what they do,
right?
And then they're great at production. They can do video editing amazingly. They do a great job of sound engineering. And I mean, there's nothing bad about anything those guys are doing, but it's not playing in a band, writing songs, putting out records. It's not the same thing. Now maybe that's the new thing. If you're a great guitar player, maybe that's the new thing that you have to be doing. Putting out records is the old model.
Right, you just have to be a YouTuber now.
Yeah, exactly. So, which I completely reject that just because I'm old. It's like you got to put out music, man. You got to write music. It's not because honestly, you can have all the chops in the world, and that doesn't make you good. If that makes sense, you don't write worthwhile music. It doesn't matter. Whether you have all the chops in the world. You know what I mean?
Now, having all the chops in the world should help.
It doesn't negate that either. You can still write great music with awesome chops, and you can write. There's people with amazing chops who play amazing music, and there's people with amazing chops who play terrible music,
right?
And vice versa. There's people with terrible chops who play amazing music, and there's people with terrible chops who play.
Are there people with terrible chops that play amazing music?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not terrible chops, but like not awesome. You know what I mean? I can look at there's a few artists out there who are solid players, but they're not like great players. You know what I mean? But I still like their music. They still write great stuff.
That'd be a good.
Steve Clark from Def Leppard would be an example. Someone like that.
Totally.
You know what I mean? That's someone who's like, not an amazing. He's a solid player, but he's not like an amazing player. But he writes great music.
Yep.
And to me, I think that
probably throw Pete Willis in there too. From
sure. Well, there's a ton of examples.
Yeah.
You can go down the line. There's all kinds of guys like Steve Brown from Trickster's, a guy who writes great tunes, and he's not like Yngwie level player.
Very solid player.
Yeah, exactly. Very solid player. Really very good. But like nothing he's playing is going to make anyone stop and go, wow, I've never heard that before. It's like, well, yeah, I've heard that kind of thing before. It's kind of Van Halen-ish. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're trying to distinguish yourself by some kind of kooky, wacky technique that you're doing, then that's going to have a short shelf life because that's just it's a novelty. It's like a street performer. It's like watching someone swallow swords or something. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, that's amazing. You must have really worked hard to get that down.
Now, if you can shred while swallowing swords,
then you're on to something for 5 seconds, and then well, now can you swallow axes now? Because I've never seen you swallow swords.
There's the sword swallowing shred challenge. Yeah, let's throw that out there.
This is the point I'm trying to make, though, is like that's not meant to last. You can only up the ante for so long, and people will get tired if you do the same thing. And it's like, well, what doesn't get tired is great songs. That's the reason people play, go to stadiums to hear "Pour Some Sugar on Me" or whatever it is.
Now, to be fair, that's the argument that the grunge set made in the '90s.
Yeah, but their songs weren't great.
Right. Thank you. Exactly.
That's the thing. And everything that they did was worse than what came before it by every measure.
by every measure, that's correct.
So, and that's the same thing. You can write songs that are great with great playing, which is what bands like Journey have been doing, Def Leppard have been doing forever, Van Halen. I mean, you name the band. There's so many. Whitesnake, Metallica, back before the Black Album, that whole thing. That's great songs with great playing. And that's what you should strive for. You know what I mean? So I think
an otherwise like decent song, right? So could be like it's like I'm sure that some Pearl Jam songs could maybe be like reworked into good songs just if Eddie Vedder wasn't there making sounds with his voice.
I think that
right. Like imagine what if that band had a real singer and maybe there were think of a song like Even Flow.
Yeah.
with that vocal melody only sung by a person who can sing, and then maybe like throw some backup vocals or a harmony on it. It would be so much better.
Too produced, man. We're raw. We're too raw for that.
It would stop sucking.
Yeah. Well,
at least a little bit.
Here's what I would say though: is that we've lived long enough to see grunge become the next niche genre. You know what I mean? It's become the next nostalgia genre. You know, people are now who are about our age are like, man, I really miss like Sum 41 and Everclear and all these like, bands from the 90s.
Sum 41's not a, I think they do.
Oh,
like
I'm not trashing
songs,
those bands, but there's now a nostalgia for Creed and Candlebox and
we got to
Spin
get past that
Doctors and
fast.
stuff. But that's happening though. We're in the midst of that becoming a thing because people who were, when we were kids, that was the music that was popular when we were kids. So now we're getting in our 40s. It's like, okay, that's becoming like people want to reach back to their youth and like relive those mid late 90s glory days, which you and I both hated.
Right.
But
I was gonna say I definitely don't want to reach back to that part.
I don't, but we're there. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's just that becoming the next niche that we're discussing. That's become the next elevator music. You know
right. Limp Bizkit just did some big dates. Yeah.
Dude, there's like I guess Sum 41 is going out with a Candlebox, and there's one other band. They're doing like some kind of nostalgia tour. Was it I don't know, it's Sum 41, Candlebox, and there's one, I think, larger band that's the headliner of that gig.
Again, I'll totally like rep for Sum 41. They wrote really good songs.
No, they actually played back in the day too.
They played well.
I remember transcribing like solos. Like, wow, they're playing solos. This is cool.
I don't know why they're slumming it with Candlebox.
Yeah, like, there's one other band. There's like this. It basically is like the 1998 like nostalgia tour.
I thought we did away with Candlebox at that Metallica show at Cal Expo in '94 when we pelted Candlebox with trash.
You can never fully kill Candlebox like Jason Voorhees. You know what I mean? They'll always come back.
Dude, I'd rather have Jason Voorhees shove his machete in a very sensitive place than listen to Candlebox.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that could be arranged, but
I mean, they're very similar experiences.
I just feel like it's a weird time, especially for someone, and this is something that we have to kind of cop to, that we have a certain amount of myopia, because music's been our lives for basically our whole lives. So
yes,
when music is something that you are just so passionate about, it's everything to you. The idea that it could be not that to someone else is kind of hard to get your head around.
Or not that to anybody anymore. So
well,
there's
definitely a lot of fans of music, but there's just everything's fragmentized and it's all niche now. It's not like there's a mainstream anymore.
Yeah. So what does it look like in 20 years? I wonder.
Same, except for there's gonna be less and less mainstream. There's gonna be just a bunch of bubble universes. There's this like whole here's the roots Americana universe. Here's the metal universe. Here's the 80s style metal universe. This is the thrash death metal universe. This is the sort of R&B universe. It's gonna be just these little bubble universes. They're all completely. It's almost like the actual universe, the actual multiverse. They'll be completely ignorant of each other's existences. It's just gonna be that little universe that you live in, and to you that's the biggest thing ever. But outside that bubble, no one's ever heard of it. That's exactly where we're going,
dude. If only in an infinite universe, if only we could just find the version of Earth where just metal rules forever and always.
I'm sure it exists. I'm sure it does.
That'd be awesome.
Where we didn't make that left turn in the 90s and completely throw ourselves off a cliff. But
yeah, so there was also no Garthpocalypse and like new.
Dude, I think you saying Garthpocalypse is like letting the grunge thing off the hook way big. I think grunge is 100%
I think
involved.
there's enough blame to go around.
Yeah. We all live in the post-apocalyptic wasteland that we live in now. So either how we got here, the comet came and wiped out civilization. So we just have to sort of endure.
If we wander through the desert long enough, hopefully we'll just bump into loudness.
We know it's funny. Yes. Oh yes. I remember reading an interview with Joe Satriani in Guitar World, like back in, it must have been like 94, like way back in the day. This is before I went to music school. I was like, really young. And I remember he said something like, music's going all directions at the same time. And, I don't know what's popular now or what's going to be popular, but I tell you this much, I'm always going to play the shit out of my guitar. And I was like, I full on agree. That's the way I thought. I don't care what's popular, what's not popular. I'm gonna always play the shit out of my guitar.
Yeah, cheers to that.
And just gonna play the music that I want to play, and then whoever's I'm lucky enough to have who enjoys it is gonna enjoy it. You know what I mean? That's
agreed.
That's the way it is, and I think that's what any artist has to do, and you have to just sort of roll with that and recognize, okay, jumping on trends is going to be a completely decreasing returns as you do that, because you're not really being authentic. People can kind of sense that if you try and jump on some trend. You know what I mean? And trends are trends for a reason. They come and go. There's nothing lasting in the hit. That's why I always drives me nuts. People like, oh, you got to stay current. You got to stay hip. Like, why? For like the next 6 minutes while that thing's popular? It's like,
well, and
no.
how would one even do that?
Yeah, to me, that's just chasing your own tail, trying to do that. I'm not saying close your mind to whatever the new trends are necessarily. There could be merit in them, but at the same time, though, you gotta you can't just jump on shit. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is the new thing. Let's do this. You know, then you're Nikki Sixx. You wake up one day and you're Nikki Sixx.
Right. You know, in my mid 40s now, I'm definitely aware of you know what's authentic for me and what's dignified as a person in our industry.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's definitely. I mean, it's still a youthful thing, right?
For sure.
So,
well, dude, the 40s is not old. You're not some old man.
well, I mean, like in the music industry, it is.
Not in rock, man. In rock, we're still kids. I mean, look at Richie Faulkner, the young guy from Judas Priest. He's like,
Oh, absolutely.
He's like 51.
but I mean, like, would Judas Priest be kind of a dad band?
What does that even mean? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I'm just kind of pointing that out of my
dad
ass.
band. I mean, to me, there's good music and there's bad music. I don't care
I agree. I'm just trying to get outside of my own perspective.
Yeah. Well, man, who cares what someone who's younger thinks?
Oh, you know what? To answer my own question, I mean, I've turned a lot of students on to Screaming for Vengeance and Painkiller as a listening project, and they all think it's fucking amazing as it should.
Great music's going to stand the test of time no matter what, whether it's made 40 years ago, 50 years, 70 years ago. You know, I think Django Reinhardt and I think Duke Ellington is still great. You know, I mean, it's like that's what was made back in the 30s. So it's like, you know, I don't think there's a shelf life on great music. And I think that's that whole chasing your tail, trying to stay current thing. Like, well, this is the new thing. Like, well, good luck with that because it's going to only have a shelf life for this long. You're only 20, so you don't know about shelf lives yet. You know what I mean? So, but at some point, that's going to go out of style and you're going to be stuck looking around and you're either going to jump on a new trend and be like the bandwagon hopper or you're going to just say, oh, this is what I like and I'm cool with being who I am. You know what I mean? And just roll with that, you know, and then don't give a crap about the next 20-year-old who thinks that's not cool, that you're not into the new thing. You know what I mean? That's
right. So so what you're saying is, you know, about don't be a bandwagon hopper. Basically, you don't want to be like the Los Angeles Laker or San Francisco Laker fan of music, right? You don't want to be a bandwagoner.
I was going to say more the Kansas City Chiefs of music.
Well, I mean, I don't really follow football, so is that the...
This is so weird to me that you're such a big basketball fan that you don't follow football.
So are the Chiefs like the football team that has like, well, it's Kansas City, right?
It's an irrelevant city.
It's an irrelevant flyover city. So it's not like it's the team that has the super rich fan base. That gets every free.
They just have the best quarterback, so that they have the best. quarterback.
Do the referees give them all the calls?
Yeah.
Okay, that's lame.
Well, till this year when the Niners go and boat race everybody and become the champions. I mean, which probably already happened. Because who knows when we're recording this? Maybe the Niners have already were Super Bowl champions. I don't know.
You could have actually had me because I seriously do not follow football.
The fact that you are not a 49ers fan is really, I find it disturbing. It's like Darth Vader. It's like
I'm not anti 49ers. I'm only anti Los Angeles Lakers and San Francisco Lakers.
I can respect that, but the Niners you got to be rolling with them. You know, it's funny. I have like a fake fealty to the San Jose Sharks too. Because go Sharks, but I don't know anything about hockey.
Okay, I do have a friend, and I give her crap for continuing to root for the Raiders.
Yeah, especially in the movie Vegas. Dude, that's a personal story, and then we got to wrap it up. We'll run down time, but I have been a lifelong Oakland A's fan. And
yeah, I've got friends who were
up
A's
until
fans.
the last like 6 months, and then I realized those backstabbing bastards are moving to Las Vegas. So I am now a newly minted San Francisco Giants fan, which I've always been a fan of the Giants. They've always been my number 2 team. But now that the A's have stabbed me in the back, you know, like the scumbags that they are, I'm now to screw them. Go to Vegas, have fun. Just like the other middle-aged man who's trying to cheat on his wife or whatever. And
here's where I'd like to give a personal shout out to my good buddy John Jensen, who shares your feelings about the A's.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I respect that.
Go Giants, man. Go Giants, baby.
If the Kings had moved to Anaheim, right, or Huntington Beach, or Virginia Beach, I wouldn't still be rooting for them.
No, of course not.
I'd probably just stop watching the NBA, or I'd probably.
You gotta go with the Warriors, man. At that point,
hell no,
you
never.
have to.
No,
you have to. Geographically,
no,
by the bylaws of sports fandom, you have to.
Mark my words. Straight to hell with the Warriors. Gentrified ass team with the refs in their pockets. I will never root for them.
That's an extreme view. You have to.
It is not an extreme view.
Geographically, you are honor bound to root for the Warriors at that point.
You know what? I was. When Hubie Brown, like maybe like 15 to 20 years ago, was coaching the Memphis Grizzlies, I was kind of like the Grizz were kind of like the team that I was rooting for in my back pocket. So I'd probably, so just so everybody knows, I know the Grizz had a good season. They've got problems. They're having a bad season. They've had some recently. They were up to like contender status before John Morant started flashing a gun around on TikTok,
Yeah.
and Dylan Brooks started talking shit, and then Steven Adams got injured. A whole list of things. But the Grizz would be my backup root for squad.
Wow, Memphis.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. All right, well, that's all good. Whatever.
Just because I liked the team and I liked one of their coaches, Dave Yeager, who coached the Kings for a while. He was in charge of that.
long list of people who've done that.
Yeah, he was in charge of that Memphis Grizzlies grit and grind team, right, with Zach Randolph, where they would just like beat you up like old school.
Yeah.
So I'll declare it. The Grizz are like have been for a long time like my backup squad in the NBA. So.
I gotta tell you, man, you're gonna hate me for this, Brian.
Dude, don't do it, Scott. Are you gonna say something nice about the Lakers?
No,
my
backup squad is the Golden State Warriors. So,
no,
because I am true to my homeland, man.
No, but
I was born in Oakland, yo.
But they're in San Francisco now.
No, now they are.
Okay, if you
it's still either across the bay. Who cares?
If you live in Oakland, then you are. If you're a little kid growing up in Oakland. Like you may never.
I was a little kid growing up in Oakland. At one
you
point.
may never be able to afford to go see the San Francisco Lakers in San Francisco.
That's true of almost every sports
franchise.
Dude,
the gentrification, just to hell with the Warriors. They are not the team you want to root for, man. The evil rich corporate. I know all of it is, but.
I don't think that Vivek Ramadeva is running a thrift shop or something.
Right. But in terms of like the league and the large markets and like the refs, not. Dude,
it's true. I'll give you this because De'Aaron does not get calls at all.
He doesn't get called. Dude,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and
it's
Sabonis
insane.
too. They don't. Those guys get calls.
Nope. No, not at all. And it's because the NBA wants San Francisco Lakers versus Los Angeles Lakers.
Well, they're going to get the Kings this year, man. We're going to go to the second round. I'm entirely confident with that.
I hope so. They gotta not to date the podcast.
We're in our typical mid-season swoon that we always do. You know what I mean? That we'll come rolling back. So anyway, that's a very interesting and well-ranged podcast. We just did that was
our most ADD podcast ever.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Please make sure to rate and subscribe this podcast. This again is the Rock Guitar Confidential podcast with Ryan and Scott.
Rock Guitar Confidential and I guess sports.
It's sports and then movies and then talking about
pop culture,
70s and stuff. So anyway, please make sure to rate and subscribe. Please follow us on social media. Obviously, we're going to be here's the website, which has got all of our links to socials. Is going to be xagesband.com.
That's www.exaegisband.com.
And we have links to our Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube on that as well. So please make sure to follow us on socials, follow us and subscribe to this podcast, and we will see you on the next show.